Hi, and welcome back to another edition of Interstitial Cystitis Chronicles with Meg M. So today we are going to discuss a hydrodistension. Oh, before that word, a cystoscopy, hydrodistension, installation. So I'm taking you back to 2014 of when I got my official diagnosis of IC. So it began like this. I go to the hospital, the surgery center, and I must say that's when I was living in Los Angeles. The treatment center, oh gosh, they were so thorough in the steps that they took that led up to me getting a cystoscopy along with the hydrodistension and the installation. Now, I did have a urodynamic study done as well, but that's for another video. So when I went to the procedure center, surgical site, or what have you, let me just tell you, I was so glad to get that IV in my arm because I was like, I'm gonna have to keep needing to go to the bathroom. Like, you need to give me something right now to relax this bladder. Otherwise, I'll be up like every 30 seconds before the surgical room was actually ready for me. So the anesthesiologist, he was very cooperative, accommodating to my request. So by the time I made it into, by the time they wheeled me into the room for the procedure, I was already knocked out. So I can't tell you who was in there, who wasn't in there, what went on. I don't know. All I know is my legs was okay because they had to get to that urethra. And then on top of that, it's always important to get your clinical notes. So in your clinical notes, it stated what position you was in while this was going on. But again, how else they gonna get to your urethra? So for the cystoscopy, that's where the camera was inserted inside of your urethra. So they're doing a survey of your bladder to look for any abnormalities. So there was no masses, no tumors, because otherwise they would have taken a sample of the tissue. So that didn't need to be done. Now, what they did see was a whole bunch of little dots. That was noted. Now, I didn't say a whole bunch of little dots because that wouldn't be the medical term to use in someone's clinical notes, a patient's clinical notes. So it was referred to, now I may be mispronouncing this word, but that's okay because I'm not a doctor. I'm not the nurse practitioner. I am the person giving you the flashback of what I experienced. So the word is, okay, so the word is glomerulations, which looks like a big old fat red allergy on your bladder. So you know how you may have an allergic reaction, what that looks like on your skin, but imagine that looking like on your bladder. So that's what mine looked like. It was all inflamed. So that was notated in my clinical notes. So from that, moving on from the cystoscopy to the hydrodistension, my bladder was expanded. So they used X amount of cc's to expand my bladder for 2 minutes. Then in my clinical notes, it reads, they did it again for another 2 minutes. So upon doing so after that, moved on to the installation. So for my installation, also known as a cocktail, it consisted of lidocaine, Decadron, heparin, marcaine, and bicarbonate. So that's listed in my clinical notes. Now, after all of that was done, I was then taken to recovery. During recovery, after I had awakened, because I was put to sleep, during this procedure. Okay. So after that was done, I remember the nurse telling me that I need to void. I need to go to the restroom. I need to pee. And then they would discharge me if everything checked out okay. So I was like, okay. So I go to the restroom. I voided. I was instructed not to flush the toilet. They wanted to observe the urine. Okay. When I tell you, when I looked at my urine, it didn't look like urine. It was urine, but it didn't look like urine. It was full of blood. But I get it. I just had a procedure done to my bladder. So yes, my bladder was angry that various things was being done. So yes, that was the indication that, okay, I'm going to lose some blood. But again, in the clinical notes, it was stated that there was no blood loss during the procedure. It's so important to get your clinical notes so you can know what went on, so you can Google, understand, communicate effectively with your doctor to know what terms are used, what questions to ask. So hold on. Let me tell you though too, during that void, it hurt. It stung so bad. So when you hear it feels like you're peeing glass out, it's true. That was my experience. It hurt so bad. Like just thinking about it, I could be in tears. Now, the cleansing agent is a part of that as well, meaning the cleansing agent that's used when you get an installation, that stuff burns. Because I have had an installation outside of having a hydrodistention. Like I've only had an installation before where it was a cocktail done. Afterwards, it burns. So I may prescribe a medication that can help to remedy that, as far as like not, well, it helps like when you go to the restroom. It's like an anesthetic for your urine that's going through your body. So you're not feeling that stinging feeling, but that particular medication, it never worked for me. But leading up to the cystoscopy, the hydrodistention, the installation, I also saw in my notes that it was notated the different medications that I trialed that led me up to having a diagnosis of IC and how I did on them, if I failed them, on and on. But I'm glad I did the procedure, that initial procedure. I'm glad I did, because you just never know what your doctor may find in your bladder. And so considering that they didn't find anything other than what's an indication of IC, like I had no Hunner's lesions, no masses again. So I was thankful for that, because you just never know. And I just knew that something was bothering me. I'm like, where the heck is this urgency and frequency coming from, along with abdominal pressure? So that's what led to my cystoscopy. Now, granted, I was having urgency frequency long before 2014, but that just so happened to be the year that I had those things done. So I bring this awareness in hopes of it helping someone who may be new to this, because like moving forward, I have a flashback of a particular gynecologist saying that she wanted to retest me. Now, her way of doing it, she wanted to put a certain type of dye into my urethra and see how I was going to react. Now, this particular dye I have heard of. And the thing is, it's supposed to be an indicator. If you have IC, you're going to jump off the table. If you don't have IC, you're going to sit still on that exam table and everything was going to be everything. But that sounds so painful. And at the same time, I'm like, how many times do I have to have this in order to have a diagnosis of IC? But now that I have the diagnosis of IC, now what? But again, I just wanted to bring awareness. If you have any questions, please ask. Any comments, do comment and subscribe. And I will see you next time. Signing out, Interstitial Cystitis Chronicles. Till next time. Advocate for yourself. Get your clinical notes. Be informed as much as you can. Till next time.